Thanks, everybody. Welcome back to GoLocal Live. It is Friday. The sun is shining in Providence, Rhode Island. It's a miraculous occasion.
For about 15 seconds.
About 15
followed
seconds.
by hurricane force winds and torrential rain.
And it's warmed up to 45,
right.
50
Yeah,
degrees.
right.
Welcome to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. You just heard one of the
I
gubernatorial
did, yeah, very well
aspirants.
very well spoken. And as I was telling him, I admire anybody who gets out and runs. It is a tough job. The population is cynical, angry, confused, and anybody who gets out there in what Theodore Roosevelt called the arena, has got my admiration. I think we're far too cruel to politicians as a class.
Yeah.
Of course, there's certain individuals that should be incarcerated. But, I'll give you a list after the show.
So we're in a we're in a new era of politics, and we're in a new era of covering politics.
That's right.
We had a story this week about who's covering politics, and arguably there are literally more candidates for governor than there are journalists in Rhode Island covering all the statewide races.
Because the implosion of the so-called legacy media, that's the main thing, the TV stations, but especially Providence Journal. And it's very sad, and no one's really worked this out. GoLocal's doing creative things and cross-promotion or looking at media in a different way, much more flexible ways, but nobody has completely cracked this nut yet. And as you know, I've been in this since sort of the beginning. And nobody has it, nobody quite knows how to do it yet.
Is there a little danger in a democracy, right? There's about 8 reporters who are of a senior level that know what they're doing. That are
around here,
around in the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah, so call it upper middle sized metros area.
Right. Yeah. So you got 8 to 10 reporters who are going to be covering these races. They need to cover the governor's race. They need to cover 3 congressional races. A very high charge lieutenant governor's races, all the other down tickets, key legislative races.
Yeah, you've got all these legislative races, and of course, who controls the legislature or runs the state. But how do you cover this stuff? The Providence Journal, as did other papers, other good papers like it, mostly closely held, family owned.
Right.
They had bureaus in every other town.
Yeah.
I can remember there were like 5 or 6 people in the Fall River Bureau. They covered Boston well.
I don't know if we've talked about that. At one point, there were 9 reporters and 2 editors in Pawtucket, and 3 of those reporters in Pawtucket went on to win Pulitzer Prizes. Simultaneously, three of the 9.
Well, it was a great feeder. The Providence Journal was a great feeder place. Some people stayed here because they like living around here, but a lot of these people, I'd go and see people at the New York Times, and where I did some work, and you'd see all these people from here. This was probably the leading feeder newspaper in the United States, and you can also get the legacy broadcast stations. Back when Bruce Sunland was running the Outlet Company, Channel 10, now sort of part of the Trump organization.
Sinclair Broadcasting.
They did a pretty good job. I mean, TV is just sort of a headline service.
Absolutely.
You know. That's the GoLocal.
And they want film.
Yeah, right. And they did a pretty responsible job, pretty thorough job. I can remember working a little bit for WHDH up in Boston, which was a TV station, a radio station, which, I got tangled up because the Herald Traveler, had the license, the broadcast, and they lost it. And they had, each had 15 or 20 journalists.
Right. So, as we progress through this campaign, we had a story today about the governor kind of switching up data.
About the jobs.
Jobs numbers.
Let's talk about that. I think probably it would be better just kind of kept a very low profile of that. The amounts.
And it was insignificant.
Insignificant. Yeah, the best is in that, I know this isn't very Trumpian, but to kind of underplay stuff like that. And if you make a mistake in the statistics, and the statistics change every month, every week, then revise it. All this stuff is revised. In fact, the month before stuff was revised. And don't crow about minor changes. Don't take credit for minor adjustments, which are really, even in a small state like Rhode Island, really like rounding errors. The thing we were talking about, the green room, the 500 jobs, that's a rounding error.
Well, it's funny, the governor...
Even in Rhode Island.
If you use the data that has been used for as long as we've been in existence, the state was only down 500. The governor decided to choose, her office decided to choose a different data point. It was up 700. Massachusetts reported today that functionally they were flat. They were up 4,700 jobs because Baker's kind of got it all in perspective. There's no win or loss on a monthly jobs number.
Baker is quite careful about that stuff. Of course, he's not under the pressure that the governor is here in a very tight race.
Right.
Again, I think, I sort of agree with my friend Scott McKay on that's, I think, her biggest problem is she doesn't come across well on television. I hate to sound superficial, but it's the real world. And so she's got this problem. She may be, run again from the left. And there's still a lot of animosity against her from the public employee unions about the pension stuff. But even though I don't think she had any alternative, there's a wonderful long story article in the New York Times last few days, maybe a week ago, about pension disasters around the country.
Right.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
And it should make, actually, Rhode Islanders feel slightly better. Some states are in much worse shape.
Right.
Oregon is a catastrophe.
Total
catastrophe.
It isn't some of their objection, which was that it just wasn't equitable, right?
It didn't seem fair.
Right. Judges didn't get touched.
Right.
State police didn't get touched.
High level people.
Right. In many cases.
That's true in most states.
Who
When they fix these things.
And didn't hit municipalities, and it didn't. And in the cases of state police, judges, etc., they didn't make contributions in the first place.
Right.
So
they didn't pay into this grotesquely underfunded thing. And of course, also the whole country was going on the assumption there'd be 8% growth every year.
Right. That hasn't worked out so well.
No, it hasn't worked out well at all.
No.
It's sort of like the housing crisis. The assumption was for about 20 years that housing prices always go up. I actually looked at the numbers. Actually, housing prices often go down for long stretches. I know they're surging now. GoLocal has had very good coverage of this. But if you look at the period from the mid-1920s, for example, to about 1960, they went down during a lot of that.
I think USA Today had a few weeks ago, over the 30-year cycle, really it was only a net of a couple percentage points.
It's what the statisticians call return to the mean.
Yeah, right.
So there's a lot of misunderstanding. I'm already hearing that again. I've been through about 5 cycles as a business center where the real estate prices go up all the time. We're seeing it in Rhode Island now, and it's going up, what is it, 13% or something?
13% year over year. I mean, it's really, especially on the east side of Providence, it's hyper price increase.
Affluent market. Brown University expanding. Also, it's sort of the exception that proves the rule in a way. There are a lot of people there around where I live where they're commuting to Boston.
Right.
Somewhat high-paid Fidelity executives, money managers, tech people.
Well, because it's low cost here.
Yeah, right.
Which brings us to Amazon. You forwarded a piece. You've got. It's looking like more and more Washington, D.C. metro area. Probably Northern Virginia near Dulles is the now X zone, and Boston as being the two leading locations for HQ2.
The final two, maybe.
50,000 jobs. Transformative for generations to come of what the impact of this.
And they would go to the seaport. That'll be like setting up your corporate headquarters in Venice.
And in both cases, neither has the transportation infrastructure to even partially deal with their existing.
You heard about the monorail idea? Did you read that?
Yes.
I put it in one of my ramblings.
Yes. From
South Station to Seaport, they can go over the flooded streets.
There's
and the GE headquarters. But the beltways, I was, as you know, I was just in Washington last weekend. The beltway is a nightmare. So
I lived there 20-something years ago.
I know you
and it was bad then. Now it is.
It's unbelievable.
It might be the worst congestion area. We've written about this issue. We poked at the issue of great, 50,000 high-paid folks.
Right.
A lot of them are going to come down and buy in Providence. But there's a negative impact to it, right? It's going to push prices up in demand.
Well, we need more housing. As I said, we need a return to the triple-decker. And I thought of this with the Agawam thing. Now, that's very nice.
Right.
It's
they
nice
bought the development rights.
And all that. But this is another case, the Nature Conservancy doing things which tends to help the rich.
Yeah.
All over the country. Like they'll buy 500 acres next to, the Koch brothers estate or something like that. More buffer. The Nature Conservancy, in many places, not everywhere, has acted as kind of a protective thing. In this case, this is an unusual case, though, because they're taking over the thing. And the neighborhood, that the Agawam is, a lot of it's middle to lower middle class, very modest.
Yeah,
small
one
houses.
side it's sort of middle class, upper middle
Sort of
class.
closed
the other
mill
side
up the street. It's a very interesting case, and I think it's a good thing and all that. It's close to the urban core, but all I could think of was that you could put about 100 houses there. We have a terrible housing shortage in Rhode Island.
Wall Street Journal had a piece, I want to say a month ago. We've been trying to schedule a time for the builders to come on, and
idea.
it was the
Yeah.
lowest. It's the lowest rate of new building starts in the last 50 years in the United States.
And here we are
at a time in a
some
boom.
way sort of a boom. Low unemployment.
Absolutely.
Right. And previous years, the stuff would be popping up all
And the
over
takeaway
place.
was two things. One, the millennials changing behavior relative to first homes.
Yeah.
The second was that there's so much regulation, that there's so many restrictions, that there's so little land.
Well, there's a lot of snob zoning.
Yeah.
A lot of it. There was something came up about in Exeter, about
Oh, my
solar
God.
stuff. They don't want anybody.
No.
They don't want anybody. They do. They're in favor of green energy as long as it's produced some other place.
It is one of the most amazing things. I think this is the most perplexing one. Folks who have lived who are liberal in thought have just died to get renewable energies to be economically viable. We are now here, and the green energy market is facing obstacles morning, noon, and night.
Jess is they're fixing the battery problem.
Right,
I talked to
absolutely.
Jim Gordon the other day.
Yeah.
There's a big conference down in Boston. Batteries. That was they're making these huge breakthroughs. Now we can't put these things up. As you know, Gordon gave up the Nantucket Sound thing.
He did just fine. I think he just sold
He
a
did well,
biomass.
Yeah. Well, you know where he made his first pile?
Yes.
Natural gas, 100 million.
We don't
chuckles about it.
right. We don't
Biomass.
we do not need to cry for Jim Gordon.
No, Jim will be okay. He'll be okay.
Right.
No,
Is he making the mortgage payment this month?
I think he's doing it, yeah.
Okay,
in
great.
his very lovely house in Beacon Hill, which I've been at. It's a spiral staircase. And all this.
Perfect location for GoLocal Boston.
Right, that's right. World headquarters.
That's right. Let's talk a little bit about the governor's race is beginning now.
You're right.
We're 7 months
People
out.
haven't really focused on it.
But the campaigns are, and they're starting to chirp at each other. What do you see? How do you see this race? Is it totally going to be decided on Gina Raimondo? Is this the only question?
I think so. I think partly unfairly because I think she's done some good things. There's been no huge scandals. She had a terrible time with the benefits thing, but that's not the only state.
Yeah.
Rhode Island's not the only state where that happened. There are catastrophes.
Is
in
the
several
problem,
states.
though, with warmer, cooler UHIP, is that people voted for her because they thought she was competent.
Right.
And then these two issues, and listen, they could happen to anybody,
They
both
happen
of them,
and have
but
happened
how they
around the
got
country.
handled. Right?
Yes.
In both cases, she denied that there were issues.
Well, I think again, it's a stylistic thing. I think she can seem, what's the right word? Know-it-all. I don't find her that way in person, but technocratic, cool, technocratic, and that doesn't work very well generally in Rhode Island.
No, Rhode Islanders want to touch and feel.
And in person, she's very personable. You've met her plenty of
Listen,
times.
I scheduled
Very
for
charming.
early in my career. I scheduled for John Chafee, and if somebody invited him to their son's Eagle Scout ceremony, they were really disappointed if John Chafee didn't show up at their son's
and talk to
Eagles.
everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she's cooler. She's very self-disciplined. So I think that's part of her problem. I think part of it is can still angry union people from the pension thing.
Right.
Partly because they were deprived of money they've been planning on, partly because of the perception of inequity. And I think certainly the cooler, warmer thing, even though I think that's sort of a joke. I think that's pretty much faded. The UHIP thing has been very difficult. And when I tell people, people in the administration say, "Oh, that happened," and Deloitte screwed things up here and there, they don't want to hear it. Rhode Islanders, in that sense, are very insular. They don't care what's happening in even New Hampshire. That it's a similar problem.
But to some degree, why should they, right?
Yeah,
we voted for her.
Yeah,
Listen, she literally has the best resume
Yeah.
of maybe any person in the United States of America. If you add up all the things that she has accomplished by her age. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah, she's
Male or female.
almost like the guy in Missouri. Also very impressive. I have his book, by the way. So
He's in a little trouble right now.
Yeah, I mean,
this is the governor of Missouri who is
sex
now
scandal, now financial scandal,
black
campaign
extorting
finance.
the woman that he was having an affair with.
Yeah,
and
I think
now
he was
there's
a Rhodes Scholar too. It's a very violent group of people. These Rhodes Scholars.
Bill Clinton.
Right. So, but yeah, I think
I am so glad I was not selected for a Rhodes Scholar.
no, it's very dangerous. You know what? No, I think it'll be about her and her personality, the tone of her administration, which to many people seems too distant. I think that's a problem. It's
Why
very
doesn't she
difficult
get credit?
to
When you
change.
drive around, there are buildings being built.
Yeah,
Not
all these
one-
vacant lots have been whining about for 30
Right.
years. They're getting filled up. The unemployment rate, I mean, it's not as good as Massachusetts, but what state is other than what, New Hampshire or
Right.
something?
It's 4.5%, which is functionally almost
That's
zero.
right. It's
Now, Gary
pretty much
Sass,
full employment.
Gary Sass will say, listen, the new jobs that have been created, on average, 40% of them are under $40,000. So these
Well, that's
aren't
true, of course, for the United States.
Yeah.
Obviously. But there has still been some pretty good new jobs created in spots. Like I said, the Brown Brain thing, the 100 million bucks. I mean, more people are being hired for that. There'll be spin-offs from that
Absolutely.
too, Josh.
Yeah.
As you know, probably medical device, pharmaceutical. But this is a relatively small number of people. It's sort of like the relatively small number of people who work for Facebook and Google.
John Donahue's, I
programmers
think
and-
now in Switzerland working for a concern over there, but John Donahue deserves a lot of credit from taking a tiny, non-existent brain science center at Brown University 25, 30 years.
Butlers are connected to Butlers.
and has blown this thing up to be one of the
It's now a sort of
national.
global center, and this is huge because of the aging of the population.
Absolutely.
Huge thing. There Alzheimer's, obsessive compulsive disorder, Parkinson's, you name it.
This
So
might
is
be
a
one
good
of the
thing.
biggest things that
It
happened this year.
is.
Right.
I think the press, in fact, could have given more context to it. Very important. It'll connect it to the huge complex in Boston and stuff
Absolutely.
like that, which gets back to my Amazon stuff. I think what you're going to find is you're going to find people from here going up to work there who want to live here because it's more affordable. And, it's nice if you have a certain income. It's a very nice place to live. But I think they'll get some design work, too. The one thing that Rhode Island has a national, international reputation is
Right.
design stuff. And Amazon's going to need more design people. There's
And we
no
do
doubt
produce a
about it.
fair amount of engineers between Brown and
right,
URI.
Right. Yeah, URI and Brown are distinguished engineering schools.
Let's
right.
jump to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Former FBI Director Comey came out with his
Yeah.
book.
Oh, boy.
He's done a series
Yeah.
of interviews. My takeaway from that is no one's very pleased with him, neither on the right or on the left.
It's so complicated.
He is not
yeah,
distinguished.
well,
And where it breaks down for me as the
Yeah.
consumer is his explanation of reopening or announcing the opening of the investigation
Week and a half or so
a week and a
before the
half
election.
before,
Yeah, yeah.
and saying, and his
That lost in
explanation
the
is,
election, in my view. So
wi-
close, without a doubt.
Without a
Yeah,
doubt.
without a doubt.
And his
yeah.
explanation is, well, I thought she was going to win the election, so it wouldn't matter.
And he was under huge pressure from anti-Clinton people, the FBI, including in the Southern District,
Absolutely.
New York. The FBI never liked the Clintons. This
Right.
goes way back. The FBI has always leaned Republican.
Right.
And they couldn't stand them, and he came under tremendous pressure to put that out. He shouldn't have done it. It was a mistake. He sort of semi-admits
When
it
has
now.
there ever been, not just an FBI director, a secretary of a department that has ever uttered such words that I made a decision
Right.
one way or the other way because I did a test of what the election outcome would be in
Right.
10 days away, and that allowed me the
Well,
flexibility as an
I
individual.
agree, Josh, but we've never had an election campaign like that. I
No.
think everyone was very confused. I mean, he also, in the July before, he sort of hit her over the, she hit her hand for the being sloppy. Of course, now we know they're all sloppy.
Right.
Pence's emails are out there. He probably shouldn't have done that, or he should have used fewer adjectives. My view is that much of this was pressure from within the FBI. They never liked the Clintons. They didn't like the way the Clintons treated them.
But okay, you're the head of the FBI.
Yeah.
You're the guy.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean,
you're supposed to be straight.
Isn't
back,
it just
rectitude.
isn't it just failed leadership?
I agree. And he should have acted as sort of a semi-judicial position. Should have been very cool. Fewer words, the better. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he talks too much. He talks too much.
Listen.
You can't accuse Mueller of talking too much. Talk about the great stone face. He's like that, up in New Hampshire.
He's done an that fell down
they
too.
fell down. Yeah, they even look. It's very similar. You see the profile and everything. Yeah.
That has not been a leak machine. Mueller's investigation. Where are we in this? Does anybody have any idea? Are we at the beginning of the beginning?
I think my hunch is that Mr. Trump will not serve out his term. Now, whether
his first term.
Yes, that's right, his first term.
Kate Nagel had
Stormy
on
Daniels, the New York City corruption. You've got 2 or 3 parts to this. You've got the Russia stuff,
right.
And you see the Democrats are suing. That's more of a publicity stunt before the midterms. They're suing the Republican Party, WikiLeaks. Well, that'll scare them. Julian Assange, right. And the Russians.
What are they going to turn off his cable in the Ecuadorian?
Suing Russia, the chief of hacking in Russia. But I think that there's just so much stuff that goes back so long. That is my hunch. I could be totally wrong. I did, however, I don't know if you remember, think there was a very good chance that he was going to be elected.
Mm-hmm.
After
Absolutely.
my trip through the South, I said, hey, this, talking to people in diners and stuff.
Absolutely.
So, but that's my hunch. He's just got too much baggage, but it might not be the Russia thing.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, Comey is too, he talks too much.
While all this is going on and Trump is in chaos and the Republicans seem to be under fire, but
they're doing okay. They still got their base.
Where is the Democratic leadership at a national level? Who is the candidate who is going to?
I see no one at the moment. They have some very presentable Hickenlooper, kind of good-looking, well-spoken guy, governor of Colorado.
Right.
And a close friend of John Kasich.
Yeah.
They were even talking about running together. Do
right.
You know that?
Yeah.
He's plausible, but I mean, who else? No, I don't see anybody in Congress. What, Chuck Schumer? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to vote for another person from New York.
All right.
There's Kirsten Gillibrand, who's sort of a tough customer, but she's got.
When are the Democrats going to learn that that New York, California, Massachusetts, liberals? I mean, I don't know if you're allowed to use that word anymore. You have to call them progressives, but. There's potentially 5 different candidates with Massachusetts, right? One of the Kennedys.
The redhead, the lipstick guy.
Right.
Joe Kennedy.
Deval Patrick is looking at it. Elizabeth Warren's looking at it.
No, they need some guy from Youngstown, like the congressman from Youngstown, who is taking on Mrs. Pelosi, the Speaker. And if she were a real profoundly loyal to the party, she would say, I will, step down. Right. And then get some.
And he's smart and presentable.
Oh, yeah, very well spoken. Get somebody.
And usually congressmen from Youngstown are indicted by this time.
Yeah, usually by the time they're 11 or something. That's right. But you need somebody from like Ohio or something. Right. It could be a woman too, but somebody about 45 years old, well spoken, and could radiate some empathy for the blue collar people. I think, and there are people like that in Congress, but none of them at the national level. That's another reason why Pelosi should get out of the way. They should get the hook for her, and then they can develop somebody. The next Democratic House Speaker could be their candidate. Otherwise, you've got this very well-meaning, nice guy with a funny name, Hickenlooper.
Right.
I don't know.
Listen, if we've elected Barack Obama while Bin Laden was on the loose,
a few years after he's a state senator.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
So I think there's still a huge vacuum. It could be Bill Cuomo's not going to make it. Too much baggage in New York and this corruption stuff. So
let's jump back to the governor's races to wrap up. To change the narrative on how people perceive her, does Governor Raimondo need to fire Deloitte? Is that one of those things? There's no good solution.
Because the conveyor belt is moving on that project. That's the trouble. Very difficult to do. I think she can. I mean, we're all stuck with how we look and the timbre of our voice and everything, but I think she could. Her advisors could change her presentation style. Part of the problem is she's a very small person, and that makes it more difficult. Well, it sounds unfair, but
I also think people have a a tenor of period of time in which they can be in the forefront.
Right.
And because she was a treasurer who was almost a governor.
Oh yeah,
right?
and she became a national figure.
Absolutely.
Our friend Philip Howard,
Sure.
he's our hero.
Right, and she's now 8 years in.
Yeah.
Right? She's been in the forefront from 8 years.
And a national figure,
Right.
to some extent during that
And Rhode
time.
Islanders have always resented that when they read an article in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, they're like, that's not the person we know. That's kind of seems to be the takeaway.
Yeah.
And don't really like the national press. Like, come fix some things here, and then
Now
you
fix
can
the
get
bridge.
Right.
This bridge is collapsing.
Right.
I didn't get my food stamps.
Right.
Or that you didn't visit the old folks home. So I think she has to change her presentation. It's difficult. I mean, we're all stuck with what we are, and I think certainly the TV presentation. I know that sounds superficial, but this is real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody talks about Bruce Sullivan, really very effective governor. In my view, a great governor.
Yeah.
I mean,
His
John
first-
Chafee, Bruce, great governor, and I think Gina in some ways come across as strong. But look at Bruce. He did tough things. He was ousted by
and got crushed.
some
His
state senator. It was
Yeah,
a catastrophe, and then he voted for Lake Common. He told me both times, which is a true story, and proud of it. So she's got, I think, more than. I don't think she can fire Deloitte at this point. It would
Just too late.
The whole thing would unravel even faster.
If that's possible.
Yeah, and I think it's really. It's a show business problem, as unfair as that is,
Thank you as always.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap things up for the week.
Yeah.
It has been a busy week here at GoLocal. We've had 2 concerts, been up at the State House. I think we probably had 30 interviews. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. Have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday. I'll be back with Business Monday. I have a jam-packed lineup on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thank you from the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We are out for the weekend. Thanks so much.